Okay, I think we can start. Welcome everybody to this new edition of this course that previously was called Strategies for Digital Wellbeing. Now it's Designing for Mindful Human-Computer Interaction, but it's the same course. So, just two informations about me. Some of you already knows me, but anyway, I'm Alberto. I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Control and Computer Engineering, the Darwin, and my main research topic is digital well-being. That is a very broad term that we will explore in this course under a very specific perspective that we will understand also later on today. So basically, just to give you some hints, we in our research group work on topics like technology overuse, persuasive artificial intelligence, so how technology can capture our attention, basically in this attention economy in which our data are the money for this company, and stuff like that. And we will try to address these topics and some methodologies that we can use to also design better technology in a way in this course. Here is my email if you need to contact me. And now what about you? So I would like to do a very brief round of the table. So if you can introduce yourself, your research interests, and also maybe the expectations that you have for this course. We can do in order if you want.
I'm working on gamification of software testing. That is the application of game design patterns to software testing.
Mm-hmm.
My expectation for this course is to learn what you already mentioned. That is how to design more, let's say, not so dark
Okay.
pattern for human-computer interaction.
Okay, interesting. What's your name, sorry?
Lorenzo.
Perfect. Yeah, dark patterns will be one of the topics of this course, and we will address it also today. So
Okay.
I hope it will be interesting for you.
Hi, I'm Giacomo. I'm a PhD student in artificial intelligence. My research interest is in the application of artificial intelligence for open science and management of software artifacts. Since my studies on using AI, I'm interested also in understanding how to create a system using AI that could be interactive with a human being as best as possible.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roberta Caruso, and my research topic is about extended reality.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I work on socially engaged virtual environments, so it would be interesting to understand how this course can give me insights about interaction with technologies and how to provide a better experience for people collaborating.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lorenzo, and my research interests are about how the digital reconstruction and simulation can help people during extended reality experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with human-machine interface, so I want to know more about what are the things and the reasoning about the design of the interfaces.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Giulia D'Agostino. I come from the Design and Architecture
Mm-hmm.
department, and my research topic is the introduction of generative AI tools into the co-design processes for industrial design. So I expect to better understand how to design a tool with integrated AI that has also positive impacts on the end users and the whole design process.
Perfect, thank you.
Hello, I'm Etilar, and my research topic is related to the different species, how the different species may impact based on the climate change. And my interest for this course is how the well-being, maybe the data related to the digital well-being could be analyzed, and how we
Thank you.
I am Rob. I'm Alberto's doctorando. I'm here. My research topic is focusing on the digital well-being in the non-leisure context. And I think this course will be good for me because when we meet, usually we talk about very specific goals for papers or for concepts. But to understand more of Alberto's thinking overall is something that is interesting to me too. So I'm looking forward to that.
Hi, I'm Luca. As Rob, I'm PhD of Alberto. I research too on digital well-being, and at the moment I'm focusing on the application of AI in digital well-being. From this course, I expect to get a deeper knowledge about digital well-being.
Yeah, they still don't know this, but probably I will ask them to present something maybe during the course about their stuff. So let's see.
Hi, I'm Francesca, and officially on the website I'm also Alberto, PhD student. My research topic is about, I mainly focus on artificial intelligence and how to apply it on, for systems for education. So the objective of follow this course for me is to learn how to design, how to well design interfaces for students and teachers.
Thank you. So if I'm not wrong, we are all from computer science except two of you, right? Okay, that's perfect. No problem. Okay, some fundamentals. So again, the title is a bit changed this year. So we are talking about mindful human-computer interaction, but the main topic will be digital well-being. But why mindful is important? Because digital well-being, at least in the current view of the research topic, is typically related to mindless usage. So problems related to digital well-being are typically linked to this kind of usage, right? That is mindless in a way. So you probably already have experienced situations in which you mindlessly scroll on your Instagram newsfeed. This clearly negatively influence our digital well-being. And there are studies that demonstrate that the temptation with the highest self-control failure rate is actually media use, right? So also considering other kind of temptations like smoking, media use is really dangerous for our digital well-being because we tend to follow this sort of behaviors. Excessive digital media use has been linked to different problems, mainly related to attentional harms, a lack of focus during our tasks, like driving, like working, like studying, a decrease in the quality of our social interactions, for example, productivity, and also problems related to sleep, for example. So while these impacts individually might appear minor, their cumulative effect can impact our society as well, as we will see in this course. So it's difficult to define what is mindful human-computer interaction, but we can easily define what not to call mindful human-computer interaction. And these sort of behaviors are not by accident, okay? So there are a lot of theories, psychological theories, that we will try to see in this course without going into details, but anyway, that are exploited by companies, designers, to capture our attention. So we see, for example, the variable reward technique that is this technique that is used. So we don't know if the next post will be interesting to us, and we are trapped in this loop, hoping to see more interesting content, like in a slot machine. So it's not by accident, and we will try to understand why we are so captured by the contemporary technology. But before going into more details, I'd like to ask you for your definition of digital well-being, to see if we are aligned or if there is the opportunity also to expand our discussion in other topics. So if you can, I ask you to open this link and try to provide your own definition of what is digital well-being to you before going into details. 5 minutes. Okay, while you are still writing, let's analyze some of the definitions. Positive impact, the power of digital tools and technologies to have a positive impact on user life, who is the author. Okay, perfect. That's interesting because we'll see that one of the, I would say, drawback of the digital well-being research area is that right now it's more about the negative view of the problem, right? So analyzing why this technology is so problematic for the user digital well-being. But I think it would be important also to focus on the positives, so to create technology that really adds something for the user. So that's interesting. There are also other similar definitions. This one, a set of design patterns which can positively impact the time spent by users in the digital world. Who is the author? Okay, perfect. This is also on the positive side, that's fine. There is the keyword time spent, and that's interesting because one of the other limitations of the digital well-being research area is this focus on time spent, which is good because it's probably the primary metric, but we will see that time spent is not the only metric to consider when dealing with this problem. Okay. Related to how much we feel satisfied with the contents displayed for us and how much we get benefit from the digital contents. If we are happy with using them and we find the digital resources helpful, then this could be the main definition of it. Who is the author? Okay, perfect. Again, on the positive side, so that's good. So you are referring more about the content that is displayed on the interface, right? So, okay, perfect. And balanced use. Autonomy of users. Users are able to make informed choices aligned with their best interests, not just with their immediate satisfaction. Who is the author of this? Yes, Rob. Okay, this is also highly related to discourse because we will see that contemporary technology, dark patterns, typically undermine our sense of agency, which is our perceived sense of being the initiator of an action and of controlling my action in the digital world. And we will see that most of these patterns that we will briefly see today undermine this capability, this sense of controlling my action. So autonomy is really a key point in this topic. Anyway, I think we are well aligned with the topic, so that's good, I think. And what about definitions in the literature? Unfortunately, this is another problem because there are no a consensus around a definition for this topic. There are some definitions, for example, this one, the impact of digital technologies on what it means to live a life that is good for a human being in an information society. But it's quite abstract, right? So it's not so specific. There are also other definitions, And this may seem as a paradox, but Google was the first actor that introduced this term some years ago. You know that on Android smartphones you have this digital well-being or benessere digitale feature that allows you to control the time you spend on your smartphone. And this was one of the definitions by Google on this topic. So it's about crafting and maintaining a healthy relationship with technology. Again, the positive view. It's about how technology serves us and moves us towards our goals, and so on. The problem is probably that the keyword digital well-being is really abstract. It can be specialized under different perspectives, and as I said before, we will specialize it under this umbrella of the attention economy. So we will focus on the attentional harms. So why our digital well-being is undermined by contemporary technology. This is probably due to the business model that these companies like social media adopt, that is called the attention economy. So we know that we can use most of the social media, for example, for free. So how do we pay for this service? With our attention. Okay, so our attention is transformed into a currency, and we pay for a service with the time we spend on it. And then there is also another problem, that companies may sell our attention and also our data, unfortunately, to advertising companies. Okay, and this is the main revenue for digital platforms today. And this business model, of course, is very convenient. And here there is another elephant in the room, that is the artificial intelligence, right? Because traditional advertising on TV, newspapers is really straightforward. Everyone sees the same ads, right? Digital services like social media, if they exploit artificial intelligence, that they can target you and provide you with the most interesting content for you in that specific moment. And this is how they can capture and keep your attention on the platform. So they can predict what is most effective for you, and they can, for example, provide you with some personalized ads depending on your current context. And the time we spend on the internet and on our digital devices is increasing every year. These screenshots are quite old, but I guess the new versions will be bigger for sure. So why a PhD course on this topic? First of all, because there is a growing interest in research, at least in human-computer interaction. So here are some keywords like digital self-control tools, dark patterns, technology addiction. These are all topics that are really hot today in the human-computer interaction field. And so this is the first reason. Then the second reason is that the topic is being recognized by tech companies too. I mentioned digital well-being by Google, but also on iOS you can use screen time to control the time you spend on your iOS devices. And the course will give you some starting points and directions. It will be research-based, so I will show you experiments, tools in the human-computer interaction field. Of course, if you want, you can go deep on different topics, but the important thing, I think that the tools, the frameworks, and the guidelines that we will see, especially towards the end of the course, can also be potentially applied to other domains, okay? And this is probably the most important point for a PhD course. There are some other related courses. Here at Polito, there is a digital well-being course for the bachelor degree. And then there are 3 courses related to human-computer interaction, okay? So there is the human-computer interaction in the Master of Science in Computer Engineering, the human-machine interaction as a PhD course. Did you attend it? No? And then human-AI interaction. It was last year, and it will be the next year, and I will also be a teacher for that course. Okay. So again, it will be under the human-computer interaction perspective. So the human-computer interaction is a multidisciplinary field. So it will not be so technical as a course, but we will draw on different topics, also on psychological theories. Then we will use technology as a tool, also probably large language models as a tool to design and implement something for the digital well-being. Some logistics. Okay. The course will be as interactive as possible. I will not stay here except probably today to speak for 4 hours. So there will be exercises to be done during the course. The philosophy is learn by doing and do by learning. So there will be a mix of lectures and practical exercises with programming included, but you will be in groups. So if you don't have programming skills, you will likely pass the exam with the help of some others. You can bring your perspectives in the design part maybe, and we will provide you with some starting points, so it will not be so difficult to program something for this course. I will upload all the material here. So we have a dedicated website for the course, that is this one. The short link is this one. And here there are some informations, but the important thing is the schedule, where I will upload all the slides and the topics for all the lectures. Okay. The plan, at least the tentative plan. We have 20 hours, right? 5 classes, 4 hours per class, and we will try to have around 50% of lecture and 50% of exercise. And this is the schedule, 5 Thursdays in a row. Always here in Lab 8. Today it will be probably a bit shorter, but anyway, let's see. The first assignment for you is to create groups, okay? You will work in group of, I would say, 2 to 3 people maximum to complete the second and the third exercise to pass this course. So if you can, by the next week, fill up this spreadsheet, creating the groups. So let's see if I can open. Yes. Put your name here and try to define groups. I would say 2 people is the perfect number. Then if you are 3, it's okay. Deadline next week. And this is the tentative detailed plan. So today it will be me that explains something on the topic, so some fundamentals on persuasive technology and the attention economy. Then from next week, we will have the first exercise in the first 2 hours. I will introduce it at the end of this lesson. We will have some reading panels. Then we will have some lecture on the end user perspective after the panels. Then in the third lecture, we will deal with the designer perspective. So we will address the digital well-being topic across different stakeholders. So we'll focus on designing for the good, and we will see some heuristics and some evaluation strategies for user interfaces to be adopted by designers. Then there will be the second exercise, an heuristic evaluation. I will introduce what is this methodology in the third lecture. Then the fourth lecture will be about the regulatory perspective, so how to regulate the digital well-being. And finally, we will have a longer exercise that is a case study in which I will ask you to try to prototype something, some tools for the digital well-being, exploiting some strategies and tools that we will address in the course, including, if you want, large language models. And at the end of the last lesson, there will be a presentation. So each group will present the prototype to the class, and this will count as the last exercise to pass the exam. So to pass the exam, to summarize, 3 assignments to be carried out mostly here. Then if you need time, you can also work outside the course hours. Assignment 1, reading panel, that is individual, and it will be next week. And it will, you will need to prepare it before the class. So you have some work to do for the next lesson. Then the assignment 2, the heuristic evaluation in group, it will happen here in class. And then the assignment 3 is the case study, the prototype and presentation, again in group. And this will span across class number 4 and number 5. To pass the exam, 2 assignments must be completed with success, one being the case study, so the case study is mandatory to pass the exam. Merit with all the 3 assignments successfully done, okay? Pass with merit. So the preferred way to follow the course is in person. However, I am recording the theoretical lectures, and I will upload them on YouTube and link them on the course website. So group exercises and presentations, I would say, should happen here in class. Okay, then if there are major problems, we can also arrange hybrid solutions, but it would be better if we can do the exercises here in class. About programming, again, you will probably need some knowing about probably JavaScript, or also other languages may be okay for the last exercise, for the case study, but we will provide you with some examples and projects to get started with. It will be a prototype, so it will be a very simple demonstration of an idea. I will be here to assist you in programming, and you will be in groups. So hopefully you will be able to deal with this. Any questions? Yes?
For the prototype, does it have to be a software, or can it also be a physical thing?
I still have to finalize the exercise, but I think it could also be a physical thing. I can try to create an exercise that also includes this possibility. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, some fundamentals before going deeper. To recap, the digital well-being term was made famous by Google some years ago, and from this definition by Google, researchers in different areas, including HCI, are now discussing the negative aspects of problems related to technology overuse. So, of course, we all know that technology has tons of positive effects on us and on our society, so we are not going to deny this, including positive effects on our well-being in terms of connectivity, social relationships, and so on. However, nowadays there is this evidence that suggests that an excessive use of digital devices like smartphones or digital services like social media produces several problems for the digital well-being, including problems related to self-regulation, problems related to mental health, social interaction, distractions, from our current goal, and also physical problems like problems in sleeping. So there is this term technology addiction that is also being used in the literature. Currently there is a debate on the possibility of calling technology use as an addiction. So it's not really demonstrated that this can be associated to a clinical disorder. But anyway, problems are quite clear. So we may call it technology addiction, technology overuse, but problems are quite clear. So starting from these problems, HCI researchers and practitioners started to investigate how to support users' digital well-being. And right now, the main strategy to support this is the development of digital self-control tools. You probably have some experience on these tools. I don't know if you use digital well-being on your smartphone or Apple Screen Time, I don't know. So there are additional apps, dedicated apps or browser extensions that assist you in self-regulating your technology use, like by setting some usage timer or some blockers for some specific applications and so on. So they typically focus on removing some distractions from the existing technology. Of course, we will address this next week, but this is connected to different problems, and it's not really the best solution possible to address digital well-being harms. And we can actually intervene in different ways to support more effectively digital well-being with respect to digital self-control tools. And this, for example, is the leverage point framework for intervening in the tech ecosystem that suggests us different way of supporting digital well-being through technology. And of course, interventions that are here are easy to be implemented, but have a small effect on users, while interventions here are harder to be implemented, but clearly have some additional advantages and long-term effects. So for example, probably we can put digital self-control tools here. Then we can act on design changes. So we can try to redesign existing applications to improve them. Instead of blocking the interaction, we change the mechanism that is keeping the user on the platform. So these design changes can have material impacts, but of course they don't address the root issue. For example, yes, this is an example from YouTube. I put this in design changes because it's integrating within the platform. So YouTube offers you the possibility to set up a break, a usage timer. So it's in the middle, okay? It's a sort of digital self-control tool integrated directly in the app. But for example, this is more interesting. Instagram some years ago, if I'm not wrong, introduced the possibility to hide the like count, for example. And this could be considered a design change. We can also act on internal governance. So these changes are implemented by decision makers within platforms. For example, by creating boards to supervise the design work and the work in the company, and maybe to change bonuses for the designers, for the developers to reward actions that increase people's digital well-being. So this is another possibility. There are some examples, not always successful, for example, in Google. So this is an article that explained this. So Google created this board to focus on unethical AI, but then when this board criticized a Google paper, they fired them and closed the initiative. So this was internal governance. Then we can have external regulation, and we will address this in one of the last lectures. We can also try to regulate digital well-being, and there are some attempts in emerging initiatives to regulate, for example, the field of AI. So with the Digital Services Act and the new European AI Act, the European Union is imposing some transparency obligations, for example, for very large online platforms like social media. So we can clearly expand this also to address the topic of attention capture dark patterns, for example, that we will address after the break. And finally, we could also think about changing the business model, and this is clearly the most difficult intervention. So these are changes that shift the fundamental operations and profit structures of a firm. So for example, a company that moves to a subscription model instead of relying to the attention economy and the advertisement revenue. And finally, there is also a change in the culture and paradigm. So changes that are the highest leverage point and generally the most difficult to shift. They need to have a widespread coverage, and we really need to also teach users about these kind of problems to change their knowing about this topic, and this could foster a change in culture and paradigm. So, okay, we can intervene in different ways, but what is the main contributor of these kind of problems? It's probably a mix of how the artificial intelligence is used to persuade the user in doing something. So it's related to persuasive technology. So persuasive technology was broadly defined by Jeffrey Fogg, a behavior scientist at Stanford, that defined it as a technology that is designed to change attitudes or behaviors of the user through persuasion and social influence. Of course, according to the original definition, persuasive technology is used for the good, right? So it's used to influence user behavior without explicitly using deception or coercion for positive outcomes, okay? How does it work, this kind of technology? By exploiting our cognitive biases and our psychological vulnerabilities. So what is a cognitive bias? It's a systematic error in our brain that occurs when we are processing and interpreting some information and we need to take a decision, okay? If you are interested here in this visualization, you can have a view of several cognitive biases. Anyway, let's make some examples. So I have a question for you. What is the color of block A and block B? So block A is, what's the color? Gray. Block B? Light gray. Light gray. Do you agree with this? No, Rob, no. Why?
Because they're the same color, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So our brain perceives them as different, but if we add some context to the image, like for example, in this way. I don't know if it's visible, but I can guarantee for you that A and B are the same color, okay? Just by adding some content, our brain recognized that these blocks are the same color. And this is an example of a cognitive bias. If I remove the context, my brain is still not able to understand that they are the same color. So it's a systematic error of my brain in interpreting this information. It's just a funny example of a cognitive bias, but it gives you the impression of how persuasive technology works to capture your attention and to steer your behavior. This is called the checker shadow illusion. I don't know how to pronounce it. Another example of a cognitive bias. So now the question is, try to match this reference line to one of the 3 lines here. Any guess? C, okay. Yeah, there are no tricks here. C, it's the right answer, okay? Because the cognitive bias is here. Is in the Solomon Asch experiment. So in this experiment, participants were asked to perform this task. So to match a reference line with a set of lines. But some of them answered after having listened to some actors giving the wrong answer. Okay, so there were some actors that intentionally gave some wrong answer, and the experiment demonstrated that over the 36% of the experiment participants choose the wrong line. Okay, and this is an example of conformity bias. So we tend to conform to the social norms around us. Okay. So what is the role of persuasive technology that exploits this kind of cognitive biases in the attention economy? Basically, as we understood before, attention is one of the most valuable resources in the digital age, and researchers demonstrated that this attention capture can be by design. So through persuasive technology, typically by exploiting artificial intelligence, digital platforms can change our opinions, attitudes, or behaviors to meet their goals. So social media apps, for example, are fighting for our attention, so they tend to promote more provocative, attention-grabbing content. I don't know if you are aware of the YouTube rabbit hole. This phenomena that you start with a video about cats and you end up with video about Holocaust and Hitler, for example. Okay, so they tend to provide you with some more provocative content in this loop that is called the rabbit hole. And so social networks, video streaming platforms make extensive use of these attention capture dark patterns like infinite scroll and content autoplay, but we will see them later. Okay, this was an example about, I think, TikTok. So ByteDance is the company that owns TikTok and also other apps worldwide. And it's a persuasive AI company. So TikTok is not a social media company. It's not owned by a social media company, but by a persuasive AI company. So the core success of this company is the algorithm that keeps user on the platform. So again, persuasive technology exploits our psychology and push us towards specific behaviors. And again, there is this value alignment problem. Okay, so persuasive technology can also be used for the good. Okay, so when our goals are aligned with the goal of the company, that's fine. We can use persuasive technology and everything is okay. But when the goals differ, then there is the problem for our digital well-being. Okay, this concludes this very general intro. I don't know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I think we can make a break now and then proceed with the first set of slides about, in this case, attention capture dark patterns. Okay? 20 minutes. Okay, so before starting, a persuasive and personalized advertisement for you. Please consider joining this course, Citizen Science, Empowered Data Crowdsourcing and Pervasive Technologies for Social Good. That is, I think, also related to our topic and to the human-computer interaction research field. Luke already tried to convince some of you in joining the course, saying that it's an easy course to pass. Probably, yes, because it will be condensed in 3 days, in February, I think. I don't remember. Anyway, I think it's also interesting. And so I suggest you also to add this course that will be by Katia Prandi from University of Bologna. And it will happen in February, I think. Anyway, you can find more details on our website, and there are also some advertisements here on the door of the second floor. Okay. So this is the first set of slides on the topic of this course. In the next lectures, we will, as I said before, address 3 different perspectives in this research topic: the perspective of end users, the perspective of UI designers, and the perspective of regulation. In this, I think, 2 hours, we will focus on, instead of what creates problem for the digital well-being in more detail, and we will focus on the dark pattern side of UX design. Okay? So this is the outline. We will go from design patterns to dark patterns, and then we will go to dark patterns in social media, and we will conclude the presentation with what we call attention capture dark patterns. So, of course, the persuasive technology and the AI is mostly here in dark patterns in social media and here in attention capture dark patterns. But let's start from design patterns. So, what are design patterns? You are probably from the design community, right? So can you give us a definition, if you can, of what is a design pattern?
So it's maybe we can define it as a common way
Mm-hmm.
to solve a problem or to bring a user to do an action.
Exactly. So what are design patterns? As your colleague said, it's a well-proven solution that solve a commonly recurring problem. So there are 2 things here, probably: the solution and the problem. Okay, so if there is not the problem, there is no design pattern. So these design patterns suggest a specific solution for a specific problem. And the important thing is that the solution has been tested by others. Okay, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can reuse something that is already that has been already tested by other designers, for example. And of course, the main advantage here is that is about reusability. So the solution can be actually reused also in different contexts. So designing is about finding solutions, but unfortunately designers, and I would say especially developers, often tend to reinvent things. But if we reinvent things every time, then it's hard to know how things were done before, why they were done in a certain way, and also how to reuse our solutions. So there is this concept of design pattern. So clearly the name, the design patterns was first introduced in architecture. So it's not a UI concept. So the idea was introduced by Christopher Alexander, who defined a design pattern in this way in his book. Each pattern describes a problem that occurs over and over again in our environment, and then describes the core of the solution to that problem, in such a way that you can use this solution 1,000,000 times over without ever doing it the same way twice. So we have the solution, it's quite specific, but it's not so specific, right? So we can specialize it in different ways, also in different contexts. So they are in a way to communicate design problems and related solutions. Again, they are not too general and not too specific, so you can use a solution 1,000,000 times over without ever doing it the same way twice. And they are a sort of shared language among designers. So they become a standard reference point for designers, and they also allow for debate over alternatives. And also, this is important, design patterns are typically readable by non-experts. So by reading the name of the pattern and its description, just with the name you are able to understand what is the solution, what is the pattern, and this is readable also by non-experts. So it encourages this sort of debate over alternatives. We can see them as a new literary form. So what is a literary form? It's a sort of agreement between the writer and the reader. So if you think about a letter, we all know that a letter typically starts with "Dear" and then the name of the recipient. Then there is a date, and then there are some remarks at the end, and so on. So we already know how to read a letter, right? And this is true also for a design pattern. So they define certain things to be in a certain place with a certain meaning. And how are these patterns described? This is an example from the Alexander book, but we'll see that the way these architectural patterns are described is very similar to how we describe patterns in the UI domain. So this is, for example, the sitting wall design pattern. So in its description, first of all, we have the name. As you can see, the name is quite comprehensive. Sitting wall, it's a wall on which I can sit on, and can be read also by non-expert. Then there is some images describing the pattern. Now it's barely visible, but here there is a wall with someone sitting on it. Then we have some context. Again, the context is important because not all the patterns are useful in all the contexts. And then the problem. That is one of the core parts of a design pattern. So here the problem is, in many places, walls and fences between outdoor spaces are too high, but no boundary at all is not good, okay? So this is a problem. Then there are some examples of possible solutions that are finally condensed in a solution statement for this specific problem. And in this case, the solution is surround any natural outdoor area and make minor boundaries between outdoor areas with low walls, about 16 inches high and wide enough to sit on. Okay? very specific. So they don't tell you how to build the wall, but it tells you also the height and the how this wall should allow people to sit on. And then there can be some references to other patterns that can be in a way related to this one. So this is a quite standard way of describing a design pattern from the Alexander book that has been also replicated in other domains as well, as we will see in a moment. So design patterns, in a way, balance forces. So they solve a problem when typically there are two conflicting forces. Another example from the Alexander book. So people are naturally drawn towards lights, okay? But we also like to sit, okay? So if I enter this room, I'm naturally attracted by the window because there is light there, but at some point I would also like to sit and rest for a minute, right? So there are these two conflicting forces, and Alexander solved these two conflicting forces with the window seat pattern that is very similar to the sitting wall. So windows where I can sit on, as in the figure. So there is clearly a relationship between architecture and human-computer interaction, because architecture describes physical environments in which we live in. XCI instead describes virtual environments in which we can interact with other people. So starting from some seminal books like these two, some people, Don Norman, and some conferences like CHI, this edition of CHI, the concept of design patterns started to grow also in this research field. I don't know if you already have seen these books, probably. This is the Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, and this is, in Italian, is called La caffettiera masochista, giusto? I don't know how to translate it in English, but clearly this mocha clearly works. It does the job, but you cannot use it without being without serious problem for your health, right? So it's a book that describes this kind of design of everyday things. And of course, you may know that CHI is one of the most important conferences in the human-computer interaction field. So in the UI domain, each user interface is unique and clearly has its own set of goals and data, but this doesn't mean that we should force the user to learn how to use an application every time, right? So there are UI design patterns that can accelerate how users interact with our interfaces. And in this website, just as a reference, you can have a look to different kind of patterns, UI patterns. Okay. They are categorized into patterns for getting input, for navigating in an interface, for dealing with data, for the social part of your interface. For example, let's open the the accordion menu. It is a pattern for navigating within an interface. So what is an accordion menu? So first of all, as you can see, the way the pattern is described is similar to the way a pattern is described in the Alexander book. So there is a problem summary, some examples, the solution, the motivation for the solution, and more examples of related patterns. Okay, so what is an accordion menu? So let's start with the problem. User needs to navigate among website main sections while still being able to quickly browse to the subsection of another. Okay, and so the accordion menu is this one, where you have a top-level list of sections that you can expand to browse and navigate in the website, but still you have the possibility to go to another subsection simply by clicking here and expanding another top-level alternative. And there is also some advice on when it's useful to use this pattern. So for example, use when you want the benefits of a normal sidebar menu, but do not have the space to list all the options, okay? So you don't have the space to list all the subsections, so you adopt an hierarchical view in which top-level items can be expanded and collapsed. Then there are other advices. So use when there are more than 2 main sections, each with 2 or more subsections. Okay, so of course this design pattern is not useful if you just have 2 sections in your website, because you cannot arrange them hierarchically. And then there are a lot of other exercises, examples, like for example, I was looking for the, no, it's not there. Another pattern is the hamburger button that gives you an example of a term that is non-technical. So the hamburger button is the button that is typical on, quite common on mobile interfaces. This one, okay? The button that typically opens a navigation drawer in Android, and it's an hamburger button because it resembles an hamburger, right? With the 2 slices of bread with something in the middle, okay? Okay, design patterns, but then in our domain, it's more important to focus on dark design patterns. So there are design patterns that can be used against the user best interest, using, for example, persuasive technology and deceptive designs. So this term, dark pattern, was coined in 2010 by Harry Bricknell, that is a designer, on Twitter. And the aim was to include all those designs that are deliberately adopted by a company to promote choices in a user interface that are not in the user best interest. Without looking at the following slides, can you make an example of a dark patterns in your daily life with your digital services and applications? Yes?
Maybe when we talk about some items to purchase, maybe on the WhatsApp or in the interaction with someone, and immediately we find the advertisement
Yes.
on social media, and maybe it's something similar.
Yes, this could be categorized probably under the dark pattern domain, also because we are typically unaware of this process, right? So things should be transparent, but this is clearly not transparent, right? So yes. Other examples?
Another example is when you have to accept or deny cookies.
Yes.
The accepting button is always highlighted.
Yes.
So in brighter colors.
Exactly, and this is clearly an example that we will see of a dark pattern. So the accept is typically pre-selected, and it's typically bigger than the other button, and so this is an example. Okay. So there is also the website, quite popular, that hosts a gallery of these kind of patterns that were originally collected through an all-of-chain campaign on Twitter using this hashtag that is still active these days. Many organizations and also many authors in HCI are moving away from the term dark patterns to use a more inclusive language. You know that, for example, many organizations are moving away from oppressive terminology that was typically adopted in computer science, for example, from master-slave to parent-child, and from blacklist to block list. In the case of dark patterns, the association of dark with harm can be problematic because it may reinforce this racist heuristic, the bad is black effect. So it's quite common nowadays to find these patterns around the term deceptive designs or damaging patterns, okay? But anyway, they mean the same things. And this is an illustration of the first dark patterns that have been found by Brignall, that in a way are now the standard reference point for this kind of problem. And originally, researchers and practitioners focused on the dark patterns that lead to financial and privacy harms, okay? For example, here, this is the pattern proposed by Brignall, sneak into basket. What is sneak into basket? It describes those situations in which you are buying perhaps a smartphone and you are going to proceed to the payment and you discover that the system in your basket has sneaked a protective case for your smartphone without your explicit interaction, okay? So if you don't pay attention to the interface, you buy two things instead of one. And this is clearly related to sneaking something into the basket. Another example, privacy zackering. And from the name you can easily guess who is the subject of this pattern. Mark. And this pattern describes user interfaces that trick users into unintentionally share some private information. So there is a growing interest in HCI research on dark patterns. I've listed here some interesting papers. I will ask you to read the first one in the first exercise. So from Twitter, this has been also has become a topic also for HCI researchers. And researchers propose different taxonomies to categorize these patterns and describe their harms for the user and also the strategies adopted by these patterns. And this is the categorization proposed by Gray et al. That we will explore very briefly. So the first category is nagging. So nagging is a repeated intrusion during normal interaction. So the current task is interrupted one or more times by other tasks that are not directly related to what I'm doing with the interface. So here, for example, there is a nagging behavior on Instagram, or at least on a previous version of Instagram. I don't know if it's still there. So this modal dialog pop-ups if you have disabled the notifications. And this is saying, please turn on notifications. And so this interrupts your task. But there is another problem here. I would say a bigger problem here. You
cannot say no, never.
Okay, exactly. You cannot dismiss this message in a permanent way, okay? I can say not now, but next time I will be interrupted again. We are clearly creating a problem for the user. Second category, obstruction, and this is a design choice that try to, in a way, encourage users, for example, to pay for a premium membership or to disable some functionality, typically by hiding something in a menu, for example. So this is a, I would say, quite old example from iOS, but anyway, there were these ads tracking feature on iOS to receive advertisements based on your location, and also your sensor data from the smartphone. You could disable this possibility, but this option to disable ads tracking was hidden in the settings menu behind general, about, advertising. So why putting an advertising option under about? It's quite unusual, right? And this is probably done on purpose to hide this possibility. Sneaking. We have seen sneaking into basket. So in general, sneaking is an attempt to hide, disguise, or delay the information that has relevance to the user. So clearly sneaking is here to make the user to perform an action they may rather avoid in other cases. So this is an example from Salesforce, I think. That is a website that sells internet domains, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, here the example is just to say that you can describe from the newsletter, but if you unsubscribe from the newsletter, you agree to share some other information to the company. Okay, so to unsubscribe, you need to share something, and this is clearly a dark pattern, right? Because interface interference. So any manipulation of the UI that favors specific actions over others. We have made an example before with the cookie policies. Here is another information in which there is an hidden information. Again, we have in the context of e-commerce, and there is this checkbox. I have read and understood the terms and conditions, and then behind more info, there is another checkbox that is pre-selected by default. But the problem is here clearly that the checkbox is behind this button. So I cannot see the button if I don't click on more info. Okay, so it's clearly hiding something to the user.
Excuse me.
Yes?
What is the difference between sneaking and interface interference?
Okay, the difference is probably yes, I think they can also overlap in a way. Sneaking is probably more related to putting something in your basket, for example, or here I force you to share something with the platform, okay, without necessarily acting on hiding components, right? So interface interference instead is more like a barrier for the user that can also be manifested as a pre-selected checkbox. So here we can see a clear overlap between the two categories, but it's more about pre-selecting here probably. Anyway, I will ask you to read the paper, so probably this distinction will be clear. And finally, the forced action. So any situation in which users are required to perform a given action to access a functionality. And this is an example from the old Windows 10. So when a system update was available, the user was not able to shut down and restart the operating system without installing the update, right? So imagine I have to give a presentation or a lesson. I turn off my computer by mistake, and that's it. There are 2 hours of updates, and I cannot give my lecture. So forced action. Okay. From describing dark patterns in these financial and privacy domains, then there is nowadays an interest on describing dark patterns in social media. So unethical design practices in, I would say, the most common technology that we use today. And here is another interesting paper from Milner et al. That categorize these kind of patterns in social media, and they define 2 broad categories of patterns here, engaging strategies and governing strategies. So engaging strategies to keep us on the social media, and governing strategies to govern, to steer our behavior on social media. Let's start with engaging strategies. So the goal is to keep users occupied and entertained for as long as possible. Again, we are in the attention economy. And within this category, we have interactive hook, that are design mechanisms that use a rewarding scheme to keep users entertained and spend more time on the service. So here, for example, there is an example from Facebook that sometimes asks you to add 15 friends to see more posts. So I'm forcing you to add, to make some friends requests before showing you the content. And the other pattern is social brokering. So design mechanisms that nudge users to create multiple connections with people, suggesting new people to connect to, and leading users to share more than they may want to a wider public. So again, there is an example from Facebook that is quite related to the first one. So also here we have some overlap. Here we are asking users to add friends to see more posts again. And then we have the governing strategies that describe designs that navigate the decision making of the user and force these decisions to align with the goal of the platform. So they control and govern our behavior. The first example is redirective condition. So a limitation in the options that force users to overcome unnecessary obstacles before being able to do something on the platform. For example, here on Facebook, if you delete something, there is this pop-up to move this in the trash, and then it says that items in your trash will be automatically deleted after 30 days. You can delete them earlier from your trash by going to the activity logging settings, but it's quite complex to delete this data for real. Then there is this one about the navigation. Rob helped me with the pronunciation, labyrinthine. Yes, okay, labyrinthine navigation. So nested interfaces that are easy to get lost in. So we create this labyrinth on purpose for the user to keep them and to govern their decisions. and this is often seen in social media and settings menu. No examples for this. Anyway. And the last one, decision uncertainty. So dark pattern that confuses users by diminishing their ability to assess situations. And this is an example. For example, here there is I think an important pop-up because it's speaking about allowing personalized ads. So there is probably a privacy policy here to read for the user. But then there is the video and the audio that is reproducing in the background. And this clearly may distract the user from reading all the content and understanding on all the content. Okay? Any questions? Okay, so starting from this growing interest in dark patterns in social media, in our research group, we started thinking about defining and categorizing what we called attention capture damaging patterns. And in our paper, we conducted a systematic literature review to provide a definition of what is an attention capture dark pattern, what are the harms for the user, and what are the examples of these papers in our digital ecosystem. And so let's start with the definition. So an attention capture dark pattern is of course a pattern in digital interfaces that a designer uses to exploit our psychology and our cognitive biases to capture our attention. And this often make users experience a sense of regret about the time they spend online. They make users lose their sense of time and control, and they make users lose track of their goals. So the goal of these patterns is to maximize usage, engagement, visits, also interactions like clicks and shares. And they, in a way, create a trap for the user that enables the stakeholder goal. So, what strategies are adopted here? So typically, this pattern try to remove the need for autonomous decision making, and this may seem as a paradox, but sometimes they also improve usability with the system. But then the goal is not to improve the usability, but to foster this sort of mindless session with the platform. Okay. So the trade-off between usability and persuasion is critical, and this of course depends on the value alignment problem. Okay, so when our goals are not aligned with the goals of the company, this may be a problem here. In terms of psychological vulnerabilities and cognitive biases, these patterns exploit different strategies. I've tried to list here probably the most common, and the first one is the variable reward technique that I have already mentioned at the start of this lesson. So this says that even the task of predicting an outcome is rewarding and triggers the release of dopamine. So again, we will see the infinite scrolling. I don't know the next post, but I'm trapped here to understand if the next post will be interesting to me or not. Then there is the reward depletion. I don't know if you already experienced this situation in which on your newsfeed you start seeing posts that you have already seen. And this creates an expectation that sometimes the next post will be new and will be interesting, or on the other hand there is this casino pull to refresh mechanism that is, okay, I'm start seeing posts that are not new to me, so I quickly go on top, I make a pull on the interface to reload the interface as a slot machine and see if there is new content. Okay. And finally, the immediate gratification. So, of course, we generally favor the situations that offers an immediate gratifications, like watching a new viral videos at the expense of our goals. The impacts are different. Of course, these patterns may promote digital addiction, they undermine our attention, productivity. Sense of agency is a key term here that we are currently exploring to see if this lens of control can be a good lens to address this problem. And also they result in a later sense of regret. Yes, let's skip this exercise and let's move to the examples. So this is the list of patterns that we identified in our review. Of course, we used everyday language to describe them, as in the Christopher Alexander book, so that they can be understood by the public. We focused on patterns leading to attention alarms. So we excluded patterns related to financial aspects, like the original dark patterns that we addressed before. And we also use specific context because, as we have understood, context is important for design patterns. So let's see a quick number of examples of these patterns. And the first one, perhaps the most common, is infinite scrolling. That is this interaction pattern through which I can navigate, typically on mobile applications. So as I scroll down the page, more content automatically and continuously loads at the bottom. Okay. So of course here the problem is not in the interaction pattern per se. There is a mix of things. There is the interaction pattern plus the artificial intelligence algorithm behind the interface. So it's a mix of things, the interaction pattern and the content that is proposed to me. The interaction pattern per se improve usability, right? Because it decreases the effort that I need to scroll a web page or a mobile app. But at the same time, if mixed with these algorithms, it can promote endless usage sessions. And again, as I said before, this exploits the variable reward technique. Okay, I have already mentioned this, the casino pull to refresh. So when I swipe down on my smartphone, typically there is an animated reload of the page that may or may not reveal new content. And the problem is probably here, may or may not. So I'm trapped here as in a slot machine to see if I will win on the next pull. So users may be tempted to refresh compulsively, hoping to receive new content. Also in this case, there is this variable reward technique because I don't know a priori what I will see in the next reload. And this is quite common in social media news feeds. Never-ending autoplay. So again, the name is quite understandable. We are not saying that the autoplay of new content is necessarily bad. The problem is probably with the never-ending part of the pattern. So a new video is automatically played when the current one stops. And the problem is that there is never a point for the user to stop and reflect. And also, additionally, the option to turn off autoplay is typically hidden or non-existent. Here is an example from YouTube that I would say it's a good example here because we have the option to turn off the autoplay in all the videos, right? Because there is a slider here to disable it. But it's still never ending, so it continues without a point to stop. This can, of course, encourage users to watch another video, and so creates this trap for the user. Also in this case, when this pattern is mixed with the algorithm, it exploits variable reward technique, because there is a mix of recommended video with the fact that these videos are never ending. And this also reduces, of course, my autonomy to stop my sessions. And this is common both on video streaming platforms like YouTube, Netflix, but also on social media. For example, on TikTok, content starts automatically, right? So, guilty pleasure recommendations. So we are speaking about, in this case, recommendations. So in general, recommendations, as you may know, can be content-based or collaborative, in the sense that content-based recommender systems recommends to you content that is similar to items that you have already seen in the past. Collaborative filtering approaches instead are based on the preferences of other users, so of other users that are similar to you. So if the system knows that, I don't know, Rob has similar interests, it recommends me something from the Rob interests, right? Then we can also have mixed approaches. Anyway, recommendations are not bad per se, and they can be useful, of course. And we interact with recommendations in every digital services and applications that we use today. But again, the problem is when the goals of the platforms is not aligned with our goals. So recommendations can become a trap for keeping users' attention. For example, when we are talking about viral videos and viral recommendations. And so this is clearly, there is clearly an overlap with this pattern with the interaction patterns that we have seen before. This guides ads and recommendations. This is an extension of one of the original dark patterns proposed by Brignall. And in this case, ads and recommendations are disguised as normal content. For example, here we have the sponsored stories on Instagram that appears together with normal stories, together with stories from other users, right? So they are in a way disguised as stories from normal users, but instead they are actually advertisements, and there is just one tiny label there to distinguish these stories. There are also other examples, for example, in Twitter or X. So when social media is suggesting you tweets from people that the user is not following, you might like this post, okay? The problem is not in the recommendation per se, but in the fact that these recommendations are mixed with normal content, so it's really difficult to understand what are the differences. Recapture notifications. So from recommendations, we are moving to notifications that are recaptured, so that are used deliberately just to recapture the attention of the user who perhaps left a digital service for some reasons. So they are used as a pretext to make the user another session with the service and to engage with it. They are typically activated by default, and this is another problem of this pattern. And this is an example from Duolingo that sends you tons of notifications to encourage you to perform something on the app, okay? Then it's about learning something, so it can also be a good tool, but probably the use of the notifications is probably too much in this case. playing by appointment. So this pattern describes situations in which users are forced to use a digital service at specific times as defined by the service rather than the user. So it's the service that forces the user to do something at a specific moment within the app. And here there are two examples. I don't know if it's still popular, but Be Real was a clear example of this pattern. So in Be Real, you receive this notification to post something on a given moment, and the moment is decided by the platform. So, and this is an example from Snapchat, I think. The Snapchat streak, if I'm not wrong. I don't know if you are familiar with this social network, but anyway, there is this streak that can be continued. It defines a streak from between two users. So to keep this streak active, I need to snap you, whatever snap means in Snapchat, every day. Okay, so I have probably to send you a message or something every day to keep this streak active, otherwise this streak is disabled. Okay, so it forces you to use Snapchat every day. And of course, if I don't respect these moments defined by the platform, I lose something, like points or the streak or something like that. And this was common in video games, and we specialized it in the context of social media. Another pattern that originated from the gaming domain is grinding. Grinding is a pattern that forces users to repeat the same process several times to unlock something, to unlock an achievement. So there are these digital services that consume our attention and time by increasing our engagement and by promising a later achievement, like a new level in a video game or a badge on social networks. And this is an example from the website of my credit card. I don't know if you have already seen this sort of game. There are these boxes that contain some gifts, and there are also big boxes that contains very super gifts for you. But before opening the big gift, you are forced to open, I think, 7 or 10 other boxes before being able to open the big box. So it's forcing you to repeat some process to unlock an achievement. Attentional Roach model. This is also an extension of one of the patterns included in the Brignull list. Roach model in general describes situations that are easy to get in but hard to get out. Okay, and this is clearly used for simplifying, for example, the process to subscribe and log into a platform, but then deleting the account, for example, is really hard. So, for example, in the video, there is the process to delete your Facebook account, which is quite complex. There are a lot of steps to follow. These steps are typically hidden within different menus. And then if you delete your account, there is this very curious pop-up that says, okay, you have deleted your account, but keep in mind if you log in again in the next 30 days on Facebook, you will reactivate your account. Okay, so if by mistake or because there is this temptation to engage again with Facebook, you re-engage with Facebook, you reactivate entirely your account. And this is clearly an example of deception. I would say if I want to delete my Facebook account, just delete it, right? time fog, we still have, okay, 2 patterns. So with time fog, designers try to induce unawareness by reducing autonomy of monitoring user time spent. So they are designed to reduce the possibility to get feedback on the time I'm spending on the platform. And this is an example from Netflix. So in Netflix, I don't know if it's still the case, but anyway, in Netflix you have the indication of the time you need to complete a video, but you don't have the indication of how much you have already spent on the platform. Okay, and this creates a sort of unawareness. So it's more focused on the next video. So how many time is left to reach the start of the next episode, for example, instead of telling you how much you have spent on the platform. And finally, fake social notifications. So again, this is about notifications, and in this case we are referring to those interactions in which a system, a platform, try to mimic a real person. Okay, so in general, these patterns is used to deceive users with false social activities and information, and it's common when digital services try to pretend to be real users. So here, for example, is an example from LinkedIn. So there is this Diane Chang that is telling me, okay, my name is Diane from the LinkedIn Premium team. Please buy a subscription on our website. Okay, this is clearly an automated message, but pretends to be a real user. And this violates the expectation that a message should be actually from a real person, right? So it's clearly a deceptive practice. And this is quite common on video games, but also on social media, and also on messaging apps, like Telegram in this case. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions,
I have a question.
yes.
For the next class, it's written that the exercise
Yes.
that's reading panels and finalizing group formation. What will be the exact task there?
I will introduce it now. Okay. Okay. So if there are no questions, we can introduce and maybe do some work already for the exercise of the next week, which will be a reading panel. Let me open it. It's already linked on the website. Maybe I will change something now, but I will upload the new version after the class. So in the second class, we are going to have probably 2 panels on some topics. So first of all, you know what is a panel, right? Or no? No? Okay. So by definition, a panel is a public debate in front of a public. It's quite common to have panels also in, I would say, big conferences, big academic conferences. So there are, of course, paper presentations, but there can be also panels during which experts on a stage discuss about a topic with a moderator, and then there is the audience that can make questions. Okay, so this in general is a panel. So panelists are experts of a given topic, and they typically bring their perspectives on that topic. So They can also disagree and discuss about something. And then there is the moderator that keeps the discussion going and ask questions also from the audience. Okay, so we will replicate this in the next class. So in this way, you will be asked to participate in 2 panels. In one panel, you will act as an expert, okay? And in the other panel, you will act as the audience, asking questions. So panelists will have, I would say, 30 minutes. It depends on the number of participants. There are 20 students enrolled for this course, but I guess this is the final number probably. So it will be 10 probably. So anyway, 30 minutes for the panelists to present themselves and express their positions on a topic. Okay. So we are in 10, so 5 per panel. Let me. Yes, around 5 to 10 minutes maximum per panelist to present themselves and express the position. And then the audience, so half of the class will have 20 minutes at the end of the presentations to make some questions to one or more panelists and to discuss something with the audience. So you will have to prepare something to act as an expert. So your presentation basically on a given topic, and also at least 2 questions for the other topic, so for the other experts. Okay. Okay, how to prepare the assignment. So as a panelist, you should read the paper associated with your topic, becoming an expert on the topic, and take a stance on a given question that I have prepared for you. Create 3 to 5 slides. I was creating this hoping for 20 participants, but we can use more time for your presentations. So create 3 to 5 slides to support your position, maybe with a link to your research or some of your research interests. And that's it. And you will prepare these slides, you will upload them, and next week you will come here and you will connect your laptop and you will present. As the audience, you should also quickly read the other papers, okay, associated with the other panel, and prepare at least 2, also 3 questions to be asked at the end of the presentations of the panelists, okay? At the end of both panels, you will have also some time to revise your slides and maybe clarify something that emerged during the discussion and submit them for the exam. Okay, so you should not submit them before next week. You should submit them after the panel. Any questions on the logistic information? Okay. I've prepared 2 panels. I think that we cannot use anymore this division because I think we can also decide together who is going to be a panelist for a given topic if you want. Otherwise, I can decide for you. Anyway, let's introduce the panels that we will see. Panel 1, digital self-control versus beyond user engagements. So here I've listed 2 papers discussing aspects related to supporting end users in achieving digital well-being versus adopting actions that go beyond user engagements. Okay, so there are two different views on the problem and two ways of addressing the problem. And the question is, for the expert, for the panelist, explain which, whether supporting end user digital self-control or going beyond user engagements has greater relevance today, and what is your position on these two different paradigms. And you can also make use of examples. Okay, and the second panel is persuasive technology, manipulation versus empowerment. Two papers discussing the ethical challenges versus the opportunities in persuasive design. And there is also a question in this case, take a stance on the question, can persuasive technology be designed ethically to enhance user digital well-being, or does it inherently risk manipulation? Okay, so there are two questions that in a way compares the two papers. You need to take a stance, prepare some slides, make some examples to motivate your presentation and your discussions, and present this to the audience, to the class. Okay. Okay. So let's see if we can. I think we can. You can choose. I mean, if we can divide from in the two panels, that would be good. So, who is interested in becoming an expert for the first panel? Rob? Yes, you can also read. Maybe you can also open the papers if you want.
I have a question about the position of the panelists. It says whether supporting end users digital self-control or going beyond user engagements. We are comparing it is either supporting users end user digital self-control or going beyond user engagements.
No, I think you can also have a mixed perspective if you want. It's your perspective on what is the best way to address the digital well-being topic, right? So it is better to supporting the self-control of the user, or perhaps is it better to design better technology by design, for example? Questions like this. Or maybe it's better to regulate the digital well-being by, I don't know, banning dark patterns.
So we can say the user story is, as a user, I experience digital well-being, but the panel discussion is what method do we use to create it?
Yes.